Welcome agents, another state of the game has ended, and today we got a whole host of things to talk about, some of which is new and some of which has kind of been discussed before, and this includes the Recalibration station, a new auxiliary mod, 515 plus gear in the Dark Zone, and more. Now if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button below and subscribe for dedicated Division content. With that said, let's get into it. Okay, so first off, the devs confirmed we're on the last phase of the apparel event. Now, there will be a maintenance tomorrow, normal time from 9:30 to 12:30, and following that, you will no longer be able to get apparel keys from projects or drops in the world. The Black Tusk outfit will still be obtainable, but only until May 2nd, so just don't forget to spend those keys before then. Now, next up, the devs did confirm that they are aware of the PC slow loading times. They said that it is a bug, there is a potential fix in the works, but they don't have one yet, so they are fully aware of the issue. Hopefully, that will be fixed soon. Now the devs did go on to talk about gear score recalibration and a whole host of things, so let's just look at gear score for right now. Now as of last week, they did talk about 490 gear dropping when you're at 500 score and what they're going to do to change that. Now up until now, what they've basically done is that they've dropped the gear lower for some unknown reason. I don't really know why, but what they said they're going to do is they are going to change the drops to drop stuff from gear score, your gear score average or higher. So say for example you've got 5 pieces of 500 gear on, and then you've got 490 on, then you might get somewhere around 500. But basically it's going to be the average of your gear combined and higher, rather than before where it was kind of average and lower, which doesn't really make sense. Now they did confirm that when you hit 500, all of the drops will be 500. So if your average gear score is 500, then you are only going to get 500 once you hit that level. And you are going to get purple gear, which will drop at 490, as this is the cap for 490. Now you might be asking, and I've seen people ask this, why purple drops? Why are we getting purple drops when we're level 500? Well, they did talk about this. The devs did say that it's actually a really good resource for recal stats, and I can confirm that's very true. And they go on to explain exactly why, which I'm going to show a clip of in a minute, because it's quite confusing. But they did also say that it's good for deconstructing for materials and all that sort of stuff. My question is stash space. If we're having to save this stuff for good recal, then we might need an increase in stash space, and unfortunately guys, they didn't talk about stash space in this state of the game, so that will maybe have to be for another thing. So going on to recalibration. Now the recalibration score at the moment increases your gear, doesn't increase your gear score, it kind of stays the same. Your recalibration is 0 to 100, but it won't do anything for your gear score. I actually talked about this in a previous video. You can have a gear score of 490, and then you'll have a recalibration of 0 to 100. 100 being the highest or the maximum attributes that you can get. So for example, if the maximum was 7% crit chance and you had 7%, then that would be 100. You get what I mean with that. But they did talk about it specifically and how it kind of works. They talked about pies and all this sort of stuff. And I think it's probably best I just play the clip for you guys, because it's quite hard to explain and they probably explain it a lot better. I will just remind you that the recalibration score is per slot and it's completely separate from the gear score. You can still hit the cap, the gear score cap, because the issue at the moment is that you recalibrate some up from say a purple gear to a high-end gear, it kind of hits the max cap very quickly and you lose a lot of stat. Well, you are going to still be able to hit the cap, although the ceiling for that cap is a lot higher, meaning it's going to be a lot more rare. So here's the clip. These guys explain it better.
This is pretty complicated, to be fair. Let's go through it in my kind of layman's terms. I think one of the things that people overlook, myself included, is that let's take a superior item as opposed to a high end. The superior item, in my understanding, and correct me when I'm wrong, is that, like you say, it is a smaller pie. So we're going to talk a little bit about budget, right, as a game design thing. The budget for that is lower than a high end.
Yes.
But it's focused into less stats.
Yeah, exactly.
So less flavors of the pie, right? So not as complex pie.
Yeah.
But the high end it has more stat, I guess, slots.
Yeah.
With a potential lower ceiling for each of those, but a higher budget overall.
Yeah.
Okay, is that?
Yeah, that is mostly correct. The ceiling isn't necessarily lower, but the chance of you hitting the ceiling on one is lower because it's distributed between 3 ingredients instead of 2, for example.
Okay, and that's what leads us to the situation, and Aloe talked about this before, was that like if you had a set of gloves at superior and it had let's say 10% assault rifle damage.
Yeah.
And then you recaled that onto a high end with a potential ceiling of 6%. That's why you see that 10% drop to 6%.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's the power has gone somewhere else.
Yeah.
And moving this you will replace what's in there from the beginning, and then you up until this point, you only had 15 gear score worth of power left to fill out.
Okay. So knowing that now, what does this new system do differently from that?
So basically, every pie had an empty piece of it, which was the growth potential, which was 15 gear score. And we made that piece way bigger. So now it's 100 recalibration score instead.
So there you go, guys. So basically recalibration will now make your items much more stronger in general, because the ceiling for the max cap is a lot higher. The chances are you are going to be able to roll that 15% headshot damage over to that piece of gear, which you wouldn't now be able to do. So that's really, really cool. Really looking forward to that. And of course, on 500 gear score items, you're going to have a 100 sort of percent recal potential. And on 515 gear score, you're also going to have that 100 recall potential. So again, I'm looking forward to these recalibration changes. Now, they did go on to talk about 515 gear. This has been a hot topic, obviously, since last week, where they said 515 gear will only drop from the Dark Zone. And now they're saying, actually, it will drop from other places. I did talk about this in my last video. Why they didn't disclose this last week, I don't know. It's called a massive uproar. And now they're saying, it is going to drop from other sources. They've not said where. I don't really know why. I think they should just probably say where it's going to come from. But good news, 515 gear will not just drop from the Dark Zone. PvE players will not be forced into the Dark Zone, and this has to be the best news to come from this state of the game. Now, moving on, they talked about mods and how they follow the similar sort of stuff as gear in regards to gear score and how it rolls. They talked about mods or high-end mods, and the issue with blue mods giving you sort of less stats but higher amounts. You'll probably notice at the moment that you can get blue mod slots that give you sort of 4% assault rifle damage, and it's because you only get, say, one attribute. So you're getting a higher amount but only one attribute, whereas on high-end mods you're getting, say, 3 attributes, and although the ceiling is a lot higher, generally what you might get is sort of 1.5% assault rifle, 1.5% optimal range. So actually the blue mods, if you're certainly for specific things, the blue mods are becoming a little bit more valuable. Again, they didn't really say that they want you to use high-end mods. The ceiling is a lot higher, but they didn't really discuss how they're looking to deal with that. The devs went on to talk about low skill power builds, how they're going to be introducing a new mod called Orcs Batteries. Now, these come with skill power for a particular skill. So, say, for example, you get a turret battery. This will give you turret skill power, but you have to sacrifice a slot. So basically, you whack this on, it will give you turret skill power. And the example they gave was that you could have, say, 2 batteries that you would whack on as a sort of Orcs battery. And then the third slot, because you're getting that skill power from those 2 Orcs batteries, the third slot you might actually be able to put a mod on that you wouldn't normally be able to get because you don't have the skill power on your build. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. It's just a way to get skill power without actually having to invest skill power on your build. You'll be getting it from these Orcs batteries instead. Now, following that, the devs talked about blue and purple mods. These are now going to be craftable via blueprints, which can be purchasable from the crafting NPC, who will now be a crafting vendor. Now, this crafting vendor will obviously have these blueprints, but also all the weekly blueprints will also be moved to this crafting vendor as well. Now, moving on to this, they said blue and purple mods will be craftable up to 490. Of course, you have your high-end mods, which are craftable, I believe, up to 500 as well. And then they went on to talk about blueprints in general. Again, another big thing they're talking about right now is blueprints. So blueprints at the moment can be obtained mainly from control points, projects, and vendors, and I believe that you can get them from other sources as well. The issue was you can only get the project blueprints from the weekly project once per week, and this was a big issue because once per week, it's going to take ages to get those mods. So what they've done is they're going to add 2 more, so you will be able to actually get 3 per week of these project mods. There will be a new daily project being added called Daily Shade Requisition, which is obtainable from the base of operations. To do this, what you've got to do is donate crafting materials. It will give you a couple of items, and a blueprint from the sort of project pool, and this will be daily. So basically, daily you'll get 1 project blueprint if you do this, and then you'll get 3 project blueprints per week. Now, in respect of the pool of the control point blueprints, if you've got them all, if they're not dropping anymore, then you've basically got all of the blueprints for control points in that pool. And again, there are different pools. You have control point, which has a pool of blueprints, projects, vendors, and basically you've used all of those. So now you've got to move on to projects and vendors and all the other sources to get those. Project blueprints should be a lot easier to get in the next patch. Now, the devs went on to talk about ammo drops. They are going to be increasing the chance of this to drop when you're low on ammo. So it's going to be bumped up. You'll be able to see ammo drops more often. They talked about crafting materials and how this is going to be increased from 400 to 600. And again, this is something they're going to keep looking at. If they feel as though this needs to be increased more, then of course they will. And then lastly, they went on to talk about the hardwired gear set and how when you're crafting this item, it was set as a range from 450 to 500, which they didn't feel as though was really fair. So what they're going to do is they're going to up it from 480 to 500. Let me know what you think of that. I personally think it should just craft at around 500, because the hardwired gear set takes a lot of hard work to actually get, and then you have to find the materials to craft it. So having something drop at, say, 480 doesn't feel that great, but with the recalibration and gear score not really meaning a whole lot, does it really matter? I don't know. You guys will have to let me know. But yeah, that was really the main stuff they wanted to talk about in today's State of the Game. A lot of things here they've already touched upon before. Again, there was some new stuff here like the Orcs Batteries, the crafting material change, the ammo drop change, talking about blueprints, purple mods, all of that good stuff. So there you go, guys. Thank you very much for staying tuned to the end. If you did stay to the end, that is. Thanks for all your support, and of course, until the next one, guys. Epic out.